Shallow Crossing by Rob Schneider. A red moon was rising from behind the mountains, casting a gentle red gradient upon the waves passing by the skiff. A lone elf clad in the trappings of a sailor from the drowned city of Vermonk, the clothes torn and ripped, failing to protect the elf appropriately from the harsh ocean wind. But that did not matter to the elf, for she was alive. Yariv grinned as she realized she could see the mountains of her home in the distance. As she tried to gauge the distance left in her journey, she realized that by the daybreak that she would be able to swim to the coast. She groaned as she twisted her neck to look behind the craft. Back to that place. Damn Crike to the void for what he did. He led them out there too. Yuri felt her memory of the event slip from her focus, as if her mind was trying to stop her from reliving that night. The fool damned them all, and only I lived. What were they thinking when we signed up for that voyage with Crike? She remembered back a fortnight ago to the start of the voyage upon the ELOHC. Made of the finest wood the Empire had to offer, the wood stained so dark that in oily black nights, where the moon hides from the reality it is forced to witness each night, disappears. The ship disappears from unsuspecting targets, getting the crew close enough to board any vessel before the crews could mount any meaningful defense from the elven raiders. Reeve remembered the crew numbered 38 and herself. As Reeve continued to try to remember what exactly happened, her skiff steadily and purposefully approached the land with each wave and gust of wind. The sun was setting behind the Draconian ironwood citadel of Nort as Reeve boarded the ELOHC. The ELOHC was bound for an raiding course along the southern tip of the continent, looking for human craft, other elves, or any other creature that dared glide across the shallow sea with a wooden barrier. Yariv looked at the citadel as the ship sailed out of one of the many covered ports in Nort, seeing the fiery sun catch each hard line of the building, seeing the mirage form around the citadel confusing her senses. The damn thing was so convoluted and overgrown. Every line is a point and every point is a line, causing the citadel to dazzle and blind anybody foolish enough to view it in the settling light. She did not care for the confusion and the irritation the sight caused her eyes. She would not see her home again for many weeks, or ever again depending on the possibilities. Yariv groaned eternally and thought, I will see this wretched city that I call home again. Void take me if not. She turned on her foot and made for the way down into the hold where her assigned lot for the trip. A small cabin near the stern of the ship. Inside she found her hammock, and the ladder she would use to climb to her watchtower. She leaned forward and gazed up the ladder to see it connected to one of the many watchtowers the ship utilized. Yariv had the night shift and her bunkmate had the day shift during this voyage. She climbed the ladder to the top of the nest and took her place to look and see what she could see on the horizon. She had a feline smile on her lips when she thought, Stray not into my vision lest you feel my rage. The first few days of the voyage were uneventful. The ELOHC followed the coast, seeing all manner of creatures hunting and living in the sea. Reeve smiled as she remembered how peaceful those days had been. Nary a ship in sight, but none of the crew had fallen either. She groaned from the smile. Her muscles were still aching from that night, that horrible night. As the red moon started to slowly descend from its perch, and the shore of the coast came closer and closer to her skiff, Yariv remembered the first deaths that occurred on the ELOHC. Yariv awoke the fourth night to her nest grabbing her shoulder. As she climbed up to her position in the nest, hand over hand up the polished bone rungs, she thought to what was relayed to her this awakening. Yariv had been informed that the three of the expedition had disappeared throughout the day, 2 of the navigators that were working in the charting room completely vanishing from the ship, and one of the forward nest watchers had vanished right with them. It's possible they left the ship together and made a run for the shore, but why would they do that, she thought. It also didn't make sense that anybody on board would murder the 2 navigators and a watcher without alerting anybody on ship to it as well. As Reeve settled into the set in her nest and started the scanning motion over the dark horizon, continuously moving her head from side to side, scanning each sector assigned to her nest. As she scanned an ocean, a mosasaur broke the surface, shooting directly upward into the sky, its massive bulk trying to escape its water world. A small plesiosaur was caught in the beast's jaws as it broke the surface, and the beast held its victim as recompense for failing to escape its world. Reeves sighed, as even that majestic display of the sea hunters could not take her mind off the disappearances during the day. Remembering this amazing display of strength brought Yuriv back to the present situation. She cursed as she remembered how easily one of these monsters could swallow this very skiff in a single bite. She would never know it happened. Yuriv sighed as she noted that in less than 10 hours she would safely be on the shore once again on her way back to Nort. The very next night upon the ELOHC was when the storm started. Started would imply that the storm stopped at some point. This was not the case, though, Yuriv remembered. As the memory wormed its way through her mental block, the storm never stopped. The waves rose and fell with no reason or rhyme, as if multiple gods had stake upon the boat and tugged and warred over the outcome of this very voyage. And Yuriv still couldn't remember what had happened that blocked night, but the memories about what occurred upon the ELOHC were slowly but surely coming back to her. During the first shift in the storm, Yuriv could almost feel the terror as she felt as she took her post that evening. Yuriv gritted her teeth as she double-checked the leather straps that held her into the nest for the 100th time this night. The moon was hidden behind the clouds tonight, but Yuriv's eyes were still able to pierce the murky darkness that surrounded the ship. Twice she thought she saw a ship cross her line of vision, but when the lightning cracked the void, it was always but a trick upon her vision caused by the rain and the wind. This time, though, she was certain there was something just on the edge of her senses. Maybe it was just some marine reptile. Whatever it was, though, she felt the hairs on the back of her neck stick up as if the thing was watching the ship, waiting, observing, but not interfering. Yuriv couldn't help maintain her calm and slipped down the ladder to the cabin to make her way to the rest of the ship. As Yuriv entered the shared cabin, she slipped and crashed into the door of the cabin. As she pulled herself to her feet, she cursed as she felt a huge knot forming on her head. She looked down at what she slipped on, and it was blood. Whose blood? Yuriv didn't know, but she pulled the cabin door open and started running towards the main deck of the ship. She had to report what she had found to somebody. The captain had to know. As she rounded the corner of the room, to the room, she flung it open and saw some of the crew eating and talking around the tables in the hall. The sound stopped as Reeve entered and she doesn't remember how it happened. But Reeve did remember that the blood had been her cabin mates and that she was also gone. The crew had searched the ship after Reeve had barged into the room. They had found that 10 of the crew had disappeared from the cabins that night. Well, they didn't disappear. They left behind what seems to be all the blood they had in their cabins. Reeve shuddered as she remembered that fact. 10 of the people that had left with her from Nort had just vanished, leaving their life liquid behind to remind the rest of the crew that they had existed, but not anymore. Reeve gazed up at the moon and estimated she only had 6 hours until she would be upon dry land again. The next time Reeve woke up from that night, the crew member that had woken her told her, "You've been asleep for the past 3 days and it's gotten worse." When she had been left alone, Reeve realized she was in her cabin and nobody had cleaned it yet. They had just tracked the blood throughout the cabin, spreading it everywhere and embedding it into every surface in the cabin. Reeve shuddered as she pulled herself to her feet and donned her uniform for the first time in days. She cursed and muttered to herself as she started to clean the cabin, thinking upon the rest of the information the crew member had told her. The other 9 crew members that had died that night were all replacements to the night watchers. This had forced Critch to double the watchers each sailor had to take. The crew was down to 26 members in total, including Captain Crike and Reeve. The tensions on the boat were rising. The paranoia that the member of crew was in cahoots with whatever madness was going on. Reeve figured this out quickly after she had taken her first watch, after waking up from her long slumber. As the ship rocked and rolled from the waves, Reeve gazed out from her perch in the nest. The sky cracked with lightning illuminating the area. Reeve screamed, "Rocks!" All around the ELOHC were massive black pillars reaching from the ocean, all higher than her perch. The ship was in a labyrinth of pillars. Reeve bolted from her nest down the bone ladder as fast as she could. But before she could reach the personal cabin at the bottom, the ship was pushed into one of the pillars, causing her to almost lose her balance and crash to the deck below. She cursed as she steadied herself and continued down as the ship was thrown into another pillar. She stumbled from the cabin into the hallway. She started running towards the main deck when a body crashed into her, knocking her through the walls of the hallway. Reeve screamed as she hit the wall, barely recognizing that she had been hit by Jin, one of the other watchers, one of the remaining watchers. Jin screamed and frothed from the mouth as he stumbled up to his feet, trying to lurch at Reeve with the dirk. Reeve yelled as the man lunged and dived to the right under his arms to the other side of the hallway. She was almost up and running when Jin grabbed her by the hair and tried to yank her off her feet, but another shape came up from behind Jin and buried an axe in the man's head. Reeve didn't realize this, though. She just felt the tension release from her hair, and she ran, hearing the guttural growling and screaming coming from the ship. As she hit the doors to the main halls of ELOHC, she stumbled into madness itself. The ship hit another pillar just as she entered, sending her body into the ceiling of the ship, cracking and stunning Reeve. The memory brought Reeve back to the present evening. She groaned as she felt the sore and bruised muscles across her back. She gazed up to the red moon and realized she only had a few more hours until she was out to the accursed shore. Reeve couldn't help but feel like she was being watched again from the darkness in the ocean. She murmured to herself, "This is what I felt when I was being watched from the perch that night," inducing a sense of dread as she neared the shore. What is this thing? What does it want from me? Reeve wondered as she felt the gaze leave her. She closed her eyes, trying to shake the feeling out of her spine, shivering with each lap of the wave against the skiff. Reeve remembered back to the halls in ELOHC as the skiff came closer and closer to the shore. As she came to her senses after hitting the ceiling of the room, she pulled herself to her feet and observed the carnage that was occurring. The room was covered in refuse and blood as the crew members fought each other in bloody, messy melee. There was no organization in the brawl, participants swapping partners as soon as their eyes met, losing all memory of their previous duels. When the ship was swept into the rocks, the melee was paused and reorganized, as if the boat was a toddler's toy in the Vextant aqueduct of Nort. The participants would then continue the melee as if unaware that the ship was being destroyed. Reeve was about to turn around and retreat back the way she came, but that way was blocked by whoever killed Zin. Reeve turned to find the way through the melee when the ship was thrown high into the sky, floating in the air above the sea, above the black rocks, and came down awkwardly upon multiple of the outcroppings, tipping the ship over. Reeve felt the vision leave her eyes for a moment after she hit the ceiling of the ship for a second time in a few seconds. She groaned as she tried to reorient herself in this chaos. The world had been turned upside down, killing many of the melee participants from felling objects and weapons, breaking bones and puncturing skin. Those that had survived were slowly dragging themselves up and back into the fight, unaware that the killing field had changed. Reeve pulled herself to her feet as she saw a woman lurch towards her with a dirk. Reeve dived to reach the woman's wrist and try to control the blade, straining as she fought the mad woman's strength and determination to kill her. Then the ship crashed into another rock, causing the woman to fly across the open space, leaving the dirk in Reeve's grasp somehow. As she pulled herself up, Reeve lurched to the other hallway, trying to find a way out. As she entered the hallway, she saw the flames that had started to consume the room, so she just left, greedily taking all the energy the room presented, burning faster and brighter the more it consumed. Reeve screamed as she ran down the hallway. She ran down into madness itself. She crashed into Captain Kirk, knocking the boats into the floor. Reeve noticed markings covering the captain's face, red and black runic symbols crossing his face, his eyes burning as if flames themselves. Reeve felt her body lurch forward. In the hand she held the dirk gracefully entered the madman's throat, and somehow punched her hand through the neck, decapitating the elf. Reeve, back on her skiff, felt her eyes open as she realized she wasn't alone on her skiff. She wasn't alone. She wasn't alone. There's something slowly taking her vision, her mind fighting to calm her panic. She wasn't alone. There were thoughts racing that were not hers. She wasn't alone. Reeve screamed as she realized her mind wasn't hers anymore. She felt a voice speak from her throat that wasn't hers. using her as a puppet to communicate, to gloat. You've realized too late, Elf. This is my body now. Reeve felt terror run down to her toes as her arms moved and flexed on their own. That foolish elf man, Crike, meant to bind me. But I'd rather be free to live as I choose, the voice said to Reeve. She tried to respond, to move, to breathe, to do anything beyond think. The thing laughed from her body. It's too late, elf woman. Struggle all you want. This body is mine, and you will be as the void, nothing in your own body, mind and soul. The thing gazed with Reeve's eyes at the coast and said, about an hour until I can reap the souls of this land. Enjoy your last hour of existence, elf. The thing moved Reeve's arms and whispered words in a tongue the world had not heard in ages, causing Reeve's body to heal and mend itself. The thing laughed a long, loud, throaty laugh of somebody who hasn't spoken in ages. As the water around the skiff exploded, Reeve was able to see the jaws of a massive beast come up and claim the skiff in a crunch and clashing of massive jaws and teeth. The blow and attack so vicious and brutal, even the thing that had taken her body was unable to stop itself from being consumed by one of the many monsters of the sea. Reeve could feel some relief in her death as she felt the thing's hold of her soul, in essence leave and escape elsewhere into the void. Unable to reap what it had desired for so long. Finish, people. Thank you for listening. My name's Rob Schneider. You can find more information in the links below to the Ko-Fi website where this is actually hosted as a PDF. It's updated weekly. I also do some sports predictions. You can find links down below. Thank you.